Hello all, and welcome back to The Report. I'm your host, Martin Mont, and I'm here with Josh Lidke, our policy analyst.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
And we're very sorry, the both of us missed our podcast last week. Unfortunately, we were at the United Nations, actually, in New York City. We went down for a day. We visited with the permanent mission to the United Nations from Greece and from Cyprus. And we got a lot of really good insights.
Yes, as well as the Sisters de Notre Dame.
Yeah, and the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, who are the sponsors of Emmanuel College and the founders of Emmanuel College, were also the facilitators of this trip. And we actually met with one of them in the United Nations. We also got a tour of the United Nations. We were able to walk around and see some of the where it happens, which is pretty cool and a rare opportunity.
Yeah, it was excellent to see the United Nations building and to hear from some of their staff about how they're trying to implement sustainable development goals and their peace processes and the functions that the United Nations is conducting, as well as from the delegations, especially how they are trying to tackle these current global issues. The Cypriot delegation on the question of Cyprus and Cypriot reunification, as well as the questions of Gaza right now and how Cyprus is facilitating some of that diplomatic discussion. Mm-hmm. And then Greece, too, with their recent bid for the UN Security Council alongside
which will
Denmark.
likely result in their seat at the UN Security Council next year.
Right, and hearing their plans of aiming to create a more peaceful dialogue, tackle issues of security that are happening across the globe, in Sudan, in other parts of the MENA region, especially with the Gaza conflict, as well as Ukraine, and also looking at climate change as an international security threat.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting parts about this, is they were talking about climate change as an international security threat. However, they were also not talking about migration as a national security threat. And the delegation was very clear about the fact that although personally they might have other opinions, they thought that regionally and the regional allies disagree with those opinions. And so as they represent the region in the Security Council, it would be very unlikely to see migration be considered a security threat to the region, which is an issue that I take contention with because it's something we covered extensively on this newsletter and on our podcast, and it seems to me to be a real security issue for countries in the Eastern Med. So that it's just a different outlook from one perspective to the other. But it was a wonderful opportunity, and a big thanks to all the people who facilitated that trip. The director of the Institute of Eastern Mediterranean Studies, Professor Van Vakis, for facilitating that trip. The Emmanuel College staff that were involved, everyone on the trip has a big thank you to all of them. It was a great time.
Yes, I totally agree.
But we're back here this week for another episode of The Report. And we are going to start by looking at the current situation in Gaza, which has again evolved this week. There was a airstrike that struck an aid workers from the United Kitchens.
Yeah, the World Kitchen.
The World Kitchen.
World Central Kitchen Project.
And that sparked a lot of U.S. foreign kind of tension toward Israel. Then this week there's also been an increase in the regional tension surrounding Iran following the strike by Israel of an Iranian embassy in Syria.
Which killed many high-level generals and staff from Iran.
Right, and their expectation that there will be some kind of response on that front. That has gone so far as to today, Lufthansa, which is one of the only European, I believe, the only European airline that goes to Tehran, fully canceling their flights to Tehran. It came after, I believe it was the Iranian Air Defense Council actually tweeted that Iran's airspace was closed to non-military air traffic, and then retracted that tweet minutes later. But Lufthansa saying, look, we're not going to hedge our bets. Like, we're just going to stop flying there. I think the only other airline that's not from the Middle East that's still flying to Tehran is actually an Australian air company. And that's That's huge because that's one of the only ways that people and businessmen from the West were getting in at all.
Right.
And that really goes to show you the tensions that are going down right now.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a tense situation. The instability in the region has definitely just been exacerbated by this crisis that's happening in Gaza. And we're seeing that playing out on the global stage right now, especially after the World Central Kitchen precision strike that killed 7 aid workers that were from international backgrounds. We saw the United States and many of its European allies come out and condemn Israel more fiercely than they have before. And one thing that Israel is definitely watching closely as they're trying to create their policies and also looking to draw back and also expand operations at the same time. The Israeli government seems to have multiple different stances they're trying to take and approaches right now to try to appease allies and also achieve their goals. But they're definitely watching the United States and whether the United States will continue arms shipments, as there's been an increasing sentiment among Democratic members of Congress and powerful people within the Democratic Party that are saying we have to just stop arms shipments altogether.
And that's going to become probably at a fulcrum point if anything with Iran happens in the next weeks, because if there's a direct conflict between Iran and Israel, direct arms conflict, then that military shipments will become a vital supply line to them.
Right, and you could see all bets off most likely in that kind of a scenario, with even limiting and putting certain stopgaps on how Israel can use weapons. That's currently the disagreement right now with the Democratic Party, which is kind of controlling the narrative right now in regards to whether Israel will get aid or not. The Republicans are on board, blank check sending aid to not Ukraine,
Israel, not
Israel.
Ukraine.
Yes.
That's why they split it up.
Yes, but the Democrats right now are debating whether we should just simply put measures that would say, Israel, you can only use these weapons in these scenarios, and that's the position that President Biden currently has, though he's signified some openness to further dialogue with Democrats on these matters. And other Democrats in Congress are saying that we just need to fully stop arms shipments altogether to Israel. But as you said, if there's a situation of Iran becoming a much more serious threat to Israel and even provoking an attack or attacking Israel itself, then you could definitely see a lot of this debate kind of be pushed to the side as weapons are rushed to Israel to support them.
Right. And that is obviously a situation that we're going to continue to monitor.
Yes.
Now, moving across the Mediterranean to Greece. Greece has been having a lot of wildfires in recent weeks, especially we reported on it this week already in the newsletter, but we're going to go back to it.
Yeah.
The Greek government is handing out hotel vouchers right now to people who have been directly affected by the wildfires. Is that enough of a stopgap measure to actually be a formidable climate policy, or is that really just a small Band-Aid on a huge wound?
Right. Well, I think at this moment, it's an immediate response to the evacuees. And this wildfire season, the Greek government was doing a lot to prepare. It has still continued a lot of their preparation efforts through conservation projects and training firefighters, getting more equipment, especially like planes that are capable of dropping water and chemicals to extinguish forest fires. And these measures are definitely good. However, wildfire season came a lot faster than expected this year for Greece, even faster than last year, with wildfires already starting to break out across the country. And that means that they're going to need to have some immediate response. The hotel vouchers is a good thing for evacuees. Hopefully that gives them some means of shelter. But nonetheless, you're going to definitely need to see the Greek government needing to take more action on these issues. They've already said they're championing fighting climate change, and they're going to need to show results fairly soon on that promise.
Right, and that this also becomes an issue of national security, as the members of the permanent mission to the UN pointed out
Yes.
last Friday. But it's also an economic threat to Greece, because these wildfires have been some of the lead causes of some of the economic downturn in the agricultural sectors and in the tourist sectors, which make up large portions of the Greek GDP.
Right.
If you see wildfires starting earlier, lasting longer, and being more damaging, you're going to see even more economic degradation, which is going to lead to lower GDP output, which is something that Greece really has. They've outperformed expectations in the past few years with, which it would be unfortunate to see that that growth go away because of this. The after the Eurozone crisis, Greece obviously had a very low bond rating, but they've come back in recent years, and they've been above investment grade since last year. With Fitch, I believe, having them at a BB plus rating.
It was something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's like wildly better than what they were in early 2000s, and so this is something that, if it's all based on outlook. So if investors are thinking that the Greek wildfires will happen in June or May even, and then they happen earlier, the outlook dips. So it doesn't matter about what the actual performance number is at the end. It matters what people think the performance number was gonna be, and if you think you're gonna hit that. So you could still see some of these things dip. You could still see interest rates rise because of that, especially on small lending and especially on city lending. And those are big, important parts of this fight for climate change, because, as you said, there's a lot of infrastructure projects that need to get done in order to make preparations for these things to happen. If that's going to happen at a local level, that needs to be financed somehow. And if those rates get higher because the economic outlooks for those small communities dip, that could hurt that in kind of a way that isn't normally perceived by just a macro look at the situation. So it could really become a problem for them. So it's something that definitely needs to be a fulcrum point of Greek policy moving forward domestically.
Of course.
And with that, we thank you so much for tuning into the report this week. We'll be back next Friday, as long as we don't end up on a whim going to the United Nations again, which is likely not to happen. But we do appreciate you tuning in. As always, you can find out more information about the IEMS on our website, LinkedIn, or Instagram. And without further ado, roll credits.